And now our next guest is Gianfranco Buffardi. Welcome.
Friends, thanks all. I am grateful to Gideon and Jack and all organizers to have leveraged the big strength for this Congress organization and for inviting me. Most of you know that my English is horrible, so I think that my further apologize will be pronastic, and therefore, let's go. I believe that all of us are convinced that creativity is an important tool for the mankind and for the existential therapy. But why? This is okay. In this exposition, I will try to present the various aspects of creativity that is an inherent human capacity. It is a tool by virtue of which we individuals' possibilities can be enlarged, a tool of freedom that implements coping and resilience skills. Existential psychotherapy is a creative process that generates creativity in itself. Creativity is a mental attitude of the human being, maybe only of the human being, that use imagination. Imagination is a thought structured in a different way from the logical deductive one, to solve problems, to face new emergencies, and create objects of some use, and much more. And this quote of Charbonnier is one underlines this concept. Among the objects generated by creativity are works of art, and are works of art also when the object is a new use of this usual their use. This is the famous ready-made of Duchamp. I think you know. Art was born as a mimesis. Mimesis is imitation, emulation, representation, reproduction. In times when the reproducibility of facts, events, people, and objects only take place through forms of narrative. The quality of narrative, a form of mental representation that starts with the intention of reproducing the fact or entity in the broadest sense, has over time assumed an increasingly important role of the mere reproduction of reality. The great aesthetic revolution brought about by Romanticism, anticipated by many artists and authors of previous centuries, understood the work of art only as a mental representation. This generated the detachment of the work of art from the concept of utility, and thus from that of mere reproducibility. And Cézanne underlines this concept with this quote, the moment of the world coming toward us. This gradual detachment is perpetuated in contemporary art forms and is constantly referred to conceptually by authors, critics, and users, also users. But even in art that is completely detached from the reproductive and mimetic need, we cannot ignore the presence of ontological elements, even in the most extreme forms of experimentation of the third millennium. My friend, aesthetic and ethic philosopher Guido Traversa, asserts, if the work of art were only mental representation without ontological elements, it would only be self-referential. Therefore, it is no art. We could locate these ontological elements in the smallest components of communication. I called them, for example, communication bytes of every form of art. We find them in the figurative arts, in the use of shapes and the colors that stimulate users to recognize memes. I think that you remember the famous meme of the Jean-Pierre Changeux, but also remember the forms, in this case Kandinsky, the famous Kandinsky synesthesia. And also still Cézanne underlines this concept with this quote, color is the place where the human mind and the universe meet each other. I repeat, we could locate these ontological elements in theater, dance, performance, Marina Abramovic, in architectural works. This is a picture of the famous Frank Gehry Museum of Bilbao, the Guggenheim. And all those actions that appeal directly to the audience imagination. But also, it's possible to find them in the languages of the literary works. And there are linguistic rules, even in the most difficult book to read of the 20th century, Finnegan's Wake of Joyce. I chose this quote of Apollinaire because I think that it is very, very impressive. There are lines in poetry which seem haven't been created, but seem to have been formed by themselves. We could locate these ontological elements also in music. A music that seeks new sounds without giving up the concept of composition, etc. I suggest you to listen a very famous for the music of the 20th century, Ligeti's symphonic poem for 100 metronomes. It's very interesting to listen. So, all these ontological elements flow through the long history of a human evolution and recognize at their origin a creative act. This is the crux of my argument. If we start from these ontological elements, a new whether they new create this. All narrative languages recognize a creative act that has moved them away from the mere reproduction of a natural reality. The creation of a language is the sense of primitive nominalization, the domestication of light in the pictogram of the Kosker cave, the production of new sounds from the thought strings of rudimental zither, and so on. What happened during this long time, from 1 million years ago to today, is very difficult to speculate. From the Bono onwards, we distinguish logical deductive speculative thinking from what the psychologist himself called lateral thinking. There are two ways of thinking. the deductive, logical thinking, rational, logical, consequential, that De Bono calls vertical thinking, and the imaginative thinking, creative, immediate, that De Bono calls lateral thinking. This concept was anticipated by Joel P. Guilford in 1950. He distinguished a divergent thought associated with the creative process from the so-called convergent thought, the most rational, logical language. And now I show you this. I think that all of you now this test. I remember the prescription. Join the 9 points with the 4 continuous lines without remove the pen from the paper and without passing through the same point twice. I have the pointer, yes. Oh. I try in the center, it's impossible. Or it's impossible in this case. What is the goal? The goal is go outside the box. This is the solution. So, by using vertical thinking, we may not notice other possibilities of problem solving. Thanks to lateral thinking, intuitive, imaginative, creative, we can realize until now unknown possibilities. Lateral I forgot to pass the mouse. This is a quote of Osborne, by Osborne. Lateral thinking is essential for both artistic creativity and scientific research, but it has also been the evolutionary driver of our narrative capacity. Effective narrative capacity is a coping tool, that is a tool with which to propose alternative solutions to those previously used. Lateral thinking enlarges our mind internal maps. This slide shows the famous, this is very difficult to pronounce for me, Paula exposed me the pronunciation, heel of the bush, Catholic, okay, of Italy. In August, on the main road, this main road, free main road, one, not the point. Oh, okay. 1, 2, and 3. The traffic can be impossible. The alternative ways are essential. Also to avoid cursing. And if we encourage the development of lateral thinking in individual, we strengthen his ability to find alternative paths to those outlined so far. And in our professional work, we have a lot of ways to stimulate our clients for different ways, for different lateral thinking. This is only some examples. But the very most important goal in the existential therapy is the dialogue, because the dialogue is creative. The absence of a predetermined psychological pattern is the communication tool that fosters epoche and Saussurean dialogue. Therapists and client have no idea how the dialogue will evolve, because each response of one depends on the affirmation of the other. Prescription in existential therapy is a prescription for creativity. It consists of changing patterns, expanding the boundaries of one existential space, existential, non existential. The difference between the two adjectives in Italian language is stronger. Esistenziale per existential, esistentivo per existential. But it's very important for us distinguish existential to existential, confronting the creativity of others and enjoying it. And I underline you another consideration that I believe it's a fundamental aspect of human creativity. The enjoyment of creativity the user of works of art in his own creative capacity. If we are enjoying art, we are making art. But for what? Deeds, griefs, and happy events are consubstantial with human life. We can only help people stimulating a creative thinking. I remember a famous book of James Hillman, if I remember well, is 1993. The title is We Have 100 Years of Psychotherapy and the World is Getting Worse. Okay. This is the last the last slide. No. All ontological, better, ontic elements that enable enjoyment are learned through a creative process and overcoming of the previously used pattern. Existential therapy encourages the enlargement of internal maps and autonomous reconditioning, the reconditioning of the individual's behavior through constant support of his creative processes. And this is the thought that I think it's correct to say, as my and yours friend Joaquin Martinez Robles wrote, and as Paola Pomponi 30 minutes ago said, that existential therapy is art. Thanks.
You? Do you have any questions?
My question is really, if existential therapy is an art, which I agree, what are my freedom as an artist in the therapy room?
As artist and as therapist. In the therapy room, I think if I am therapist, I have no, it is difficult also in Italian, not in English. I must work for my client. And I think that is very important, this is client that stimulates the artistic event. But I think that art is different from therapist and from client. The art is the dialogue. It is the confront and the neighborhood, all the space around and between the two people. As the art is different from people that act the art. Okay.